they didn't have their pre-stuff. All right. Good morning. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
All right.
We'll wait for a few people to come on. Mm-hmm.
Can I have more? Michelle Murray.
There's the notification.
There it is. Okay. All right. I guess
Good morning. Where should we start? We have a few people.
Yeah. Good
Allie
morning.
is with us.
Yes.
Allie, you should just come in. Be with us.
Hi, Darlene. You're not the only one yet. I just didn't have it preing, so you guys like, oh, hey, we're gonna be live in 5 minutes. We get distracted.
We had
Good
somebody
morning.
who popped in and was glad to find us all sitting in one spot. It's like,
Whoa,
no,
whoa, whoa.
get out.
It's not a team meeting yet.
No.
Yeah, we're good. Everyone's here.
All right. I was kind of looking up. I know that I got quite a few emails from people that had comments. Almost everybody's were about the same, but I still kind of thought that I was going to call people out by name and say thank you, for the comments because a couple people said, oh, wondering if I get the comments, but anyway, I'll keep looking for those. But anyway, so the book that we're reviewing is the Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Society book, a big old handful. So we're going to review that, and then we're going to talk about a couple other books that were suggested to us this month. We'll talk a little bit about next month's reads, and then but first I just want to talk for just a second about the book club in general. And I think we've talked about this a couple times about why it started, but I was kind of into a long back and forth email, multiple. We went on for a bit of time with a gal, with Teresa, about the reason for the book club. And she said, gosh, she says, I just, because she hasn't agreed with all of the titles.
Sure.
Didn't like all of them, thought a lot of them were a little controversial, especially the first one.
Of course, yeah. We knew that.
We knew that.
What was the first one?
The first one was the Mad Honey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We didn't know
And
that until we read it, but it was too late.
Yeah. And so there was a lot of discussion back and forth. And I think that, and I still feel the same way. I think that we have a good time here. Mm-hmm. We don't all think the same way, right, but we still really, really love each other. And we now have all of these new friends, all over the United States that like to hang out with us, and we like to hang out with them, and we like to hear from them. Even people that we've never met, we recognize their name, and we say hello, and we have messages back and forth. And so a book club is one of those really fun, unique things to be a part of. Mm-hmm. Every single book club I've ever been a part of, which has been many, most of the time I didn't like the book. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to say, often I didn't like the book for different reasons, and so it's possible that this book club is the same thing. But what I think it's fun because we're getting recommendations from everybody. All right. Now, that very first one, which was a different sort of a book, that was because I love Jodi Picoult. Right. I love Jodi Picoult. I love Frida McFadden. There are certain authors that I really, really like. And that one had been hard to get a hold of and was super, super popular. And so that one was my pick. But since then, we have people suggest, and then we all vote. Yeah. There still might be a book that you think, absolutely not, I don't want to read that, or vice versa. But anyway, so that was why. So I think it's kind of funny because, Teresa's comment is with the sort of uncertain political climate and a lot of negativity right now going on, that it seems like this could be a positive thing. Yeah. So I want to say this is a positive thing for me.
For sure.
I truly enjoy reading something that I never would have even known the title of. I never would have even been looking for it, except that it was recommended by somebody.
I agree.
And I want to talk about one book in particular that's like that. We'll talk about it at the end. But anyway, so I think it is a positive thing, even if you don't like the book. I still think it's positive, still think it's a good thing. And so anyway, with that, because a lot of the other people will comment and say, oh, I didn't get a chance to read it, but I still want to join you. So that's the other thing that we need to say up front. There will be spoilers, whatever books we talk about. So I would say it's all on the line for all of the books that were recommended for the August reads. The July reads. We will have some spoilers on all 4 of those books. So be prepared for that. I don't like having a book spoiled for me. So I think that that's an important thing to say.
Anyway, sometimes it's nice if you're just not sure, like, oh, none of those really like interested me, you know?
Yeah.
It's nice to see it and then decide, oh, okay, maybe I liked it.
Maybe
Oh, there's a plot twist. Oh, okay, I know the twist, but still, good character building, funny, fast read, couldn't put it down. All those things that are reasons you pick up a book or will read it because someone said you should.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. So let's talk first. Let's start for the reason that we're here, which is to talk about the book that was voted on, nominated, and then voted on by all of us. I voted for this one also. So let's talk about this book. So I'm going to say with the recommendations, a lot of people found that a book that was written entirely of letters was difficult to read. And the term for that is epistolary. And there was a couple of other examples that I sort of found along the way that people had talked about that, but there was this one and there was this one. And it almost seems like a book of poetry more than a book of, but now see, you have a very, very different, so it'll be interesting to listen to Marge because Allison said it, Elizabeth said it, Mary said it, that they felt that it was difficult to get into and difficult to keep people straight. I would say.
Were they audio or were they reading paperback?
Allison for sure was audio. She said she listened for 2.5 hours. And Elizabeth, I'm not entirely sure that Elizabeth told me if it was audio or readable. So maybe let's start first with a rating.
So I have not finished it all the way yet because I am doing it on Audible and I cannot keep my people straight. So I would say at the moment I'm at like a 3. And I feel like I like the idea of having the letters and all of the stories, but I feel like I need a little more character building. I kept thinking back to Homecoming when we realized all of it was real. And she had so much character building, and you were just in this cool story to find out. Oh, I have to read that again. Or like the river one.
Oh, right, Frozen River.
Frozen River. That one also. I had all of that extra character building to find out all of it was real, and then so that's where I'm at. Is I feel like I needed a little more. I need a little more
background narration.
Just a little something, because I do like the storyline. I get where it's coming from, but I do think Audible is really hard for me.
Okay, I have to say the same thing. So I was actually even lent the hard copy quite some time ago, and that's how far I am. So it's hard. 2 things are hard. So I went ahead and started listening to it on Audible. On Audible, it was impossible. I could not. I was rewinding so much, and I was so lost with where I was. Because to me, their voices were all the same, for one thing. I never knew who was talking.
I wondered.
Yeah. And so I had a super hard time. And I have a hard time also with the accents sometimes. And so I had a super hard time. But I liked it. It was just so slow. And so reading a book this way, in my life, this is hard for me because for me to just sit down in the chair and read a book, that's just not something that I have time for. And at night, when I read at night, this is, what is that saying? It's stronger than melatonin. This is my Ambien right here. And so, so I was constantly losing where my little bookmark went. And so it was hard. So I'm going to admit right now, I cheated. I watched the movie.
which is totally different from the book.
Is it? The movie is good.
I would have watched the movie. I just didn't have time to watch
The movie is good. And so now I feel like I can go back.
But you get the characters. You get
Yeah,
the
I have
faces.
I have
better.
Now I understand who's who.
faces
Yeah.
to a name.
Because also their names are odd. You know, Isla or what was the one
Isola.
else? Isola,
Eben,
Eben.
Dazi.
Yeah, odd names. And so but now I know what they look like.
Mhm.
And I know the backstory. And so now I'm going to try listening again. But now I have to wait in line for it. And so I am going to finish it. But so it's hard for me. I'm kind of like Brianna. I think it's going to end up being a really good book, but I had to have too much other help before I could finish it. So that's where I'm at. But
Well, I watched the movie when it came out 6 years ago,
Oh,
and I
okay.
really liked the movie. So so then I downloaded the book, and I thought the book was really hard to get into at first, but I thought, just realize you've got. So I went back and I watched the movie again, refreshed my memory on who was Juliet and Daisy and Amelia and Kit and so Elizabeth, all of those core people. Then it got easier to recognize when they'd say, Juliet to Isola or Isola to Juliet or Elizabeth to Daisy or whoever.
Yeah.
Then it was easier. And then I really got into it. And then all of the side letters, all of the information that she was collecting, from people giving her notes that weren't core people, but the stories were really, really touching, I thought, really moving and amazing how they were able to come together and to come up with that on the cuff, the Guernsey literary, and meanwhile wondering if they're all going to get
arrested,
put in jail or worse, or and so I thought it was really good. I made it through, and the ending is the same but in different context from the movie to the.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but the same thing. She still is the one who says, "Hey, do you want to marry me?"
Yeah.
So, would you like to marry me?
Yeah, will you? Yeah. That's
So
good.
then what was your
Yep.
rating then?
I would give it. I want to say 5 because of them put together.
Okay.
If I would have had to do it on the movie alone, I really like the movie. If I had to do it on listening alone, it was hard. It would probably get a 4.5. So.
I'm anxious to go back now and finish it. So.
Yeah, I wondered about. I thought this is the fourth time I've read this book.
Oh wow!
Well, see, when the years I belonged to a bridge club, we exchanged books as often as we dealt cards, and that was in a pile I got one day, and I started reading it, and it drew me in instantly. So I read it then, and then I read it again for another book club, and then I read it again. And so I read it again now. I thought about listening to it audibly just to see what difference it made, but I decided not to. I still like to read it. I give it a 5.
Good.
Straight up. I enjoyed it the first time. I enjoy it still to this day. What I liked about it is that when the main characters are introduced, Juliet, Daisy, who writes the letter to her, who happens to see her name in a book, Amelia, reading their letter, I had a picture of what they looked like in my head instantly.
Wow.
And then as we went on, and then I love Juliet's wit, and I think what throws people off, there was lots of letters that was one sentence long, or maybe 2 words.
Mhm.
So I could see where constantly saying that would throw you off by listening to it audibly.
Sure.
And I just felt like, and I agreed with the stories later when she went to Guernsey and, and just went to talk to people and the stories they told her, it got away. We knew there were hardships and stuff, but how people dealt with it, I just felt they were just very honest. And I felt like this is fiction, but I felt like I was there. I was, with these people, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like the book. I like the letter format. I don't want to read every book like that,
Yeah.
but I did like the letter format because it kept it simple.
Well, and it's fun sometimes to read something that's unique, right?
Yeah.
You know, something
Mhm.
that's a little bit different.
Mhm.
What are these guys saying?
So there's a mix too. Some people have said they've read it it's one of their favorite books. They read it every other year.
Yeah.
okay.
Super love it. Lots of 5s. Some people were saying it took a while to get into it, and then once you figure out who's who, it just really really enjoyed it, and they want to go back and read it
Oh,
again.
good. Okay,
Some
good.
people said they did. That was the first time doing it, but they had already listened to it or read it twice
Okay.
because they wanted to go back. So yeah, it's kind of, some people are on the not so sure. Found it a little bit boring. Not sure they liked the letter format of it. And then others kind of agree with both Tracy and Marjorie. They just love it. Heartfelt, feel like you're there. Emotional at times, funny at times, but super great. And some people haven't seen the movie. Some people are going to watch it. Some people felt like they should have listened to the book and then watched the movie. But it was it was good.
I think there
There's a
has
little
to be
mix.
something about the way that our brain works, you know, that those of us that are more, left brain versus right brain, the way that we think and organize things, because
Absolutely.
just as many of us will have a different opinion about cannot listen to audiobooks, do not like them at all, cannot follow, or love them. I would have never thought I would love audiobooks, except that I'm so often doing something. I'm listening to music anyway.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm able to listen to that while I'm doing so many other things anyway that it makes sense to me. But anyway, well, that's interesting. Okay.
So yeah, for
All
me,
right, great.
I feel like I want to read it on paper.
Yes, I think so.
feel like it would be a good story,
Yeah.
a good whatever. I haven't even watched the movie, but I feel like it's one of those things that I need to read on paper because there's so much, chapter title.
The one thing I
Reading
want
that.
to say about, there's a lot of letters from Juliet to Sydney
Mhm.
that, I mean, they're part of the story, but she kind of goes on and on, like, I don't want to do this, I want to do this, come home, that kind of part of this. I mean, she had a wonderful relationship with her publisher, but that I could see where parts in there could get kind of drag you down.
And
a
maybe
little
that's
bit.
her way of keeping it in a letter format, but giving you that back
Yeah.
context that you need,
Mhm.
what else was going on.
That's the writing to Sydney, that's how she actually decided. I mean, at the beginning, she tells you, I don't know what to do next. I need to write another book, but I have no idea how, what, when, and where. And then she gets a letter. And then all of a sudden she gets several letters, and then she decides to go and she calls off a romance, and she, her progression in this story. And I mean, another thing I felt about Juliet was, yes, I mean, she lived in London. Yes, she lost her parents when she didn't have the best backstory either, but she just felt London very dreary and stuff. But I don't know that she didn't suffer the hunger. No, she didn't have new pairs of shoes, but nobody else did either, type of thing. So I felt her background. She was just bored.
Yeah.
Or she needed she was a woman who needs action or something to keep her mind busy.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So then that, let's just go on to, we'll do this a little out of order then. So then who was your favorite character in the book?
Oh, Juliet.
Juliet, for sure.
Yeah. And Elizabeth to a certain extent, because I mean, basically it's about, Elizabeth and what happened to her and how she affected all these people. But I like Juliet.
Yeah.
I like Juliet.
Yeah, I did too. And I mean, and Elizabeth, because it all kind of evolved around a lot of it around her. But I really like Juliet because I felt like she made a huge transformation from writing under a nom de plume and then becoming herself and really.
And she sounds like she's such a nice person, just not a mean bone in her body. And that's, how can you not like that?
And of the people, let's see, Elizabeth said Elizabeth was her favorite.
Yeah, a lot of
where the
people are
others,
Juliet and
Elizabeth
Elizabeth too.
Juliet.
I liked Dawsey too.
Yeah.
I did too. Well, I don't know if you're going to ask this question. I guess I'll wait to see if you ask this question.
We asked, let's see, so what's the next one? So everybody else, same thing, Elizabeth and Juliet, pretty much. So maybe I should put my glasses on. What's the next question? We kind of talked about what we thought about a novel composed entirely of letters. So the third question was, there's numerous people identified in this book. Which voice resonated with us the most? Which letter? I think, did you list it as which voice? So because I can't help but think a lot of the mother. What was the mother's name?
Whose mother?
The mother who's
Amelia? No.
Elizabeth was the mother of Kit from
no.
the German.
Who was
So it was question number 3 is what Mom's going for.
Yeah.
The residents of Guernsey giving Juliet access to the private memoirs.
which voice was
which
most
voice
memorable?
was most memorable to you, or person, letter? What letter? Do you think?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I think she's talking about those last letters. There was a man. Was it the man in the cemetery that talked about Elizabeth and Jane going and playing on top of that? You know, there was just several voices that told stories about Elizabeth, or told stories about what the hardships were, or I guess it depended on, you know, what part of the. Is that really what you mean
Yeah,
by that
because
question?
it wasn't
Pinpoint, just
just one.
what-
And then you were telling me one about that there was Oscar Wilde.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes.
That was. I loved that one. It was Isola's grandmother.
Isolda, yes, her grandmother.
Her grandmother, when she was a child, her father was really mean and he killed their cat. And she was so sad and sitting by the road and crying. And this carriage came flying by and almost hit her. And, you know, they stopped in the carriage. The driver was yelling at her, you know, and then this man gets out of the carriage and says to stop yelling at her. And he goes over to console her and tells her, he said, you know, what's wrong? How can I help you? And she said, my cat is dead. My dad killed my cat. And he said, well, you know, your cat's not really dead. Cats have 9 lives. And he said, and I can speak to those cats. And he said, so let's just sit here and listen. And yep. Your cat is not dead. It's only in its 3rd life, and it's living in Paris. And so then over the years, he would send letters to the grandmother, and it turns out it was Oscar Wilde. And so then
she still had, and her
had
granddaughter still had these letters from
I
Oscar.
see.
Well, they sent for somebody to authenticate them
Mhm.
because he signed it. Oscar Wilde had 4 names, and he signed it with all of
it
those
was like
initials.
W.
Yeah,
something.
big long. Yeah, that was a really neat
That was
part of the story.
I loved that.
Mhm. And so, whose grandmother was that? I have to go
Isola's.
back. Is that Isola's?
Mhm.
Her name was Granny Finney,
I think
something
so.
like that. Yeah.
What
Anyway.
are other
Yeah,
people
they
talking
liked that
about?
one.
Mhm.
Let's see. CJ said when Rennie encountered the dog, although she didn't describe what happened in the first person, it must just that's something that she just thinks about.
Well, that was
The
another part of the
dog
story.
encounter.
Yeah, they've taken this. Have you been to Remy yet? Have you come
Uh-uh.
across? Okay. Anyway, Remy she was with Elizabeth in the prison camp, and she survived. Elizabeth
okay.
did. Well, that's a spoiler. Elizabeth
That's okay.
did. So anyway,
We already warned them.
I don't think Elizabeth died.
Dawsey brought Remy to Guernsey. He thought she needed to come there to recuperate, and they were out for a walk, and this great big dog was out with a walk with its owner, and it kind of did it lunge at her or just there? I think it did lunge at her. It jumped on her, and she just went. Apparently in the prison camps, they had dogs doing that all the time. Another story that was horrible was one about the one guy said he watched a German officer kill a dog to eat it.
Oh yeah.
That was, and then another guy would turn around and tell the stories about how if somebody was sick, all of a sudden some medicine would show up.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the German officers also, or the German
There were
soldiers.
some good soldiers.
There were some
that
good
had
soldiers.
empathy.
I remember that from other
books we
other
read.
books that
Yeah.
we've read that they have mentioned that. So okay. Which society member was your favorite?
Mm.
in the Guernsey Society.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like both Elizabeth and.
Oh yeah, we already asked them.
Yeah.
We
We didn't ask about Dawsey.
We didn't ask about Dawsey. That was really
That was
good.
right.
First
Yeah.
impressions of Dawsey.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
what it is. Okay. Yeah.
I'm hearing banging from the room next to us, and I keep wondering what's going on.
This is our birthday boy. Are you in the camera? There you are.
7 today.
Here, there's our birthday boy.
He wants to come read the book with us. It's like, yes.
Is that what you want for your birthday?
It's a book.
To come and read with us?
I think he wants my computer.
Yeah.
You have to be patient, babe.
So
Okay.
Dawsey,
They're all saying happy birthday.
I like mine. I want my tablet like hers. It has Minecraft and there's a whole lot of Minecraft games.
Ooh.
Oh.
They're all saying happy birthday to you.
Bye.
You ain't bye.
Such a good boy.
Mhm.
Okay. First impressions of Dawsey.
My first impression when he wrote the letter, when I didn't even think about it when I read his first letter, he's very intelligent. There wasn't a mistake in this letter. The language was perfectly correct. You know, it wasn't, but I kind of had the impression of a hillbilly hermit kind of person.
I
And
thought,
it took me
older
it took a long
man.
time to get over that.
Huh.
And then I thought, no, this is some probably handsome guy in his
30s.
yeah, he might have been a little bit older, but anyway, in his what are the jeans that look so good on everybody? Guys,
Levi's.
Overalls, Levi's, Wranglers.
Wranglers, yeah. It was Wranglers. Yeah,
She's a country
see,
girl.
that's what I think of now.
Wrangler.
Yeah, Betty said she liked Dawsey and Julia, but she thought Dawsey was old. It was hard for
That's
her to
what I
tell
thought
the age
too.
of
In
the
the first
character.
letter that when he
that is
contacted
old.
her, I had that
See, he was old.
Yeah.
Yes.
like
Mhm.
old.
Lori
way.
said it was hard for her seeing him as a romantic interest until towards the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it took a long time. Yeah.
To see him
And
that
all of
way.
a sudden this come through and it's like, oh, okay.
It's way easier in the movie because he's very handsome.
He's
Oh,
very handsome.
Okay. Yeah. See, my picture of
Not in
him when I
Wranglers.
read his first letter was this old guy.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know why, really. I just did.
All right.
Yeah,
Now let's
everybody
see.
thought it was
Let me
pretty
get. We've been out of order here. Let's see. Side member. Okay. Do you agree with Isola when she says reading good books ruins you for enjoying bad books? Really?
No.
No, because
I
I think,
think so.
do you ever just change in moods? Like you read something, like I know you guys said you didn't like Harry Potter. Well, I remember reading a book. It was a true crime story that was so intense and so horrific. It was true. That I needed something just different that was fantasy. And so I read all of the Harry Potter books just to get away from this horror that I had just read.
Hmm.
So I don't think so, unless it's something different, like they're talking about, like Amelia and Juliet talking about Wuthering Heights, like that kind of
Yes,
a romance to
yeah,
go to just
yeah.
some,
Yeah.
Fabio.
I never thought.
I don't know. Yeah, that
Yeah.
might ruin it that
Yeah.
way, but
Yeah.
like Wuthering Heights.
I have to agree with Isola. I feel like it is when I have a good book, it's hard to like, oh, now do I go now? Almost put you in like a reading slump because it was
Yeah.
so good. I just don't want to ruin the high
Yeah.
I'm on because it's a
Yeah.
bad. I was not good
Totally
read.
agree.
So I do have to agree that it's that way.
The
And
troops are
sometimes I feel like I'm even picky where I'm going to give you in my Audible book, you get like 3 chapters. If I'm not interested, I might just move on. It's like
Yeah.
I just came off such a good read, and now it's like, oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. It can't, yeah.
So I do
see
think
that.
so. I think I do judge
Yeah.
after a really good read. I'm a little more judgmental than if I'm just
Well, okay, because
reading to
mine was an
listen.
opposite. Well, I didn't think it was a horrible, imagination story, but the true crime to some fun
sure,
magic.
and that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know about reading a good one makes a bad one
Worse.
Well, I don't know what you call it. Like right
Yeah.
now, I bought a book several years ago by Boo Walker, which is a person that book clubs recommend. I cannot get past page chapter 3, and it's like, okay, why am I wasting my time
Yeah.
trying to read this book? I mean, maybe it's good, but it's about a winery in Washington State, but I can't get into this book.
Yeah.
And so, my thing is once I read a really intense book or a really good book, what I end up doing is, Mom, what you do something, is picking something like, some summer read of a living on a beach in North Carolina on the summer romance. I'll do that a lot.
Yeah.
Just read just some fluff.
Quickie.
Yeah, just some fluff, because I enjoy those books too. And like I said, when you read a really good book, you think, oh, what am I going to read next? Now, like you're talking about that book, I may borrow that. I would never, ever pick that book out to read. But you make it sound interesting enough to. And actually, I read a little bit about it after when I looked it up, and I may get it.
Well, and I think that this also is a good example, because when I finished this book, I didn't read anything for 2 days because I just wanted to keep thinking about this book. So that's one thing.
Maybe it's why you're having a hard time sticking into this one, because it's so different.
It is so different, but this one I just recently finished. But because prior to that, the one prior to this, because what I do is I read all of the 4 that are recommended. Sorry. Brianna's leaving for a minute. I'm going to keep talking. Oh, no. Something's going on.
It's not good.
So I make a point to read. So the 4 books from the July, the 4 books from June, the 4 books from August.
Oh, wow.
So even though we picked one, I really do want somebody to recommend. So somebody that I know recommended this book. And so for me, I think there's so many choices out there. I may or may not like it, but I want to read it anyway. And so I like the idea of getting out of my usual thing that I read to read something else, because it was funny. We were talking about it the other day, and then Marge and I were just talking about this morning that it seems like for a while there you get into a whole bunch of war books, the historical fiction, and all of the historical fiction seem to be about, between the women and Nightingale and all of these that have some sort of war, storyline to them. And even this one, I mean, all of them do. So anyway, it's kind of fun to find something that may not be something I would pick, because I totally agree. I would never in a million years pick this book for myself. I would never go through a bookstore. I wouldn't even pick this one off the shelf because of what's on the cover of it.
I do read. I know you
read
don't.
Sci-fi?
No, I read some of the stuff on the back. I mean, I realize that's fairly, but I'll read a little bit of it just to see, okay, do I want to pick this book up?
Yeah.
And I guess if it is not a real good sentence, I'll leave it behind, and I may have missed some books.
Well, the funny thing about that is that this particular book, I am going to say that it is possible. It is certainly the best book I've read in the last 3 years. This book to me is better than Nightingale. I'm going to say it.
Wow.
This book is better than Nightingale. It is possible that this book will end up being my all-time favorite. I could not, and again, I could not stop even thinking about it. And it's not a book that we can even talk about, because there would be too many spoilers. So all you need to know is this man wakes up in a coma. And then from there, you don't know anything else. They tell you that he's on a spaceship, so I could tell you that. But the rest of it, it's 2 different storylines. He wakes up with amnesia. So he is slowly remembering. So there's the 2 timelines. There's what's going on right now, while he's waking up alone on this spaceship. And then what was happening on Earth to get him there. And so you go back and forth. Every other chapter is on this same timeline as he goes forward and as he finds out, what happened and what happened in the end. You will never guess any of those things that are happening as they happen. And it was just, the other funny thing about it, though, is that the reason that I tend to not read a lot of sci-fi is I feel like I don't, there's so many things I don't understand. I don't care about rockets and space and, all of that kind of thing. This guy is super, super smart. But he made me feel smarter because he kind of explained it in a way that, oh, you think I know what you're talking about? Oh, and then you kind of could get it a little bit enough that you could absolutely follow along. But I have to say, absolutely, you missed it when I said better than Nightingale. Better than it's the best book I've read for as long as I can remember.
Wow.
Fantastic book. Cannot recommend it enough. Now, that being said, and I want to read it again in a couple of years.
Sure.
You know, I already know what happens, but I feel like I missed some things because there was a lot.
Always do.
You know, but so tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, was that on? That was
something to choose for this month's read.
something to choose for this month's read.
Yeah.
Little spoiler for you guys. We didn't choose it. What we chose for this time was The Life We Bury.
That's what we're reading.
I have read
That's
that.
what we're reading now.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have read it.
When are
I've-
we reading this?
We're not.
We're not. This was listed
Oh.
as one of the possibilities
Oh,
for June.
okay.
but
So tell me now, because
Guernsey
I
won.
downloaded the wrong one then.
This was June. No. The one that we're doing now
Is The Life We Bury.
Okay.
Somebody has it here.
I've got it. I
but-
didn't bring it in here.
But
I have it.
on those possibles were tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
Yes.
I don't know. You said The
Horrible.
Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and then she was gone. You don't list the other one.
Oh, the other one was tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
Okay.
So The Life We Bury, fantastic book. I think you guys will all like that. It's not about what you think it is. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I have currently. It's going to be my next one. And then She Was Gone. I read that one. That one was good. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, I did not finish. It was the saddest, most horrible people doing horrible things to each other, lying and manipulating, and then the only good person dies. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. So I didn't finish it. And then it was funny because then the questions came out for this, and I thought, yeah, it does. When you can think for 2 days just
About one book. Yeah.
savoring a book, and then another one is like, you people are all horrible people and I don't want to know anything else about you. And so anyway, I do think that I've gotten pickier about books, but I also think that just this group and just this thing for the few months that we've been doing it, it's been really fun to read something different to get out of our slump. So anyway, okay. So then so that was a whole long answer about that, but we had to kill time while you were wrangling babies.
Sorry.
Okay, so then the last question regarding this book is, would you recommend it? And would you watch the movie?
A lot of people have already said wanted to read or watch the movie and already have watched the movie. No one's talked about recommendations yet, though.
Recommendations. Would you recommend them? I think that if I recommended the book, I would make sure and tell somebody it's a book of letters.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and that you have to, and I would also preface that I think it is difficult on Audible to do a book like
I
that.
wondered about that. Yeah.
You have to there's something about seeing a letter to, you know, this is to this person. I mean, I think that
Well, they didn't say like
they
from
they
oh,
did, but
Well,
there's too many words.
I was going to say though, like there was lots of them as like 7 p.m. You know, that was her whole letter. And so if you're going to say, well, that was Julia to Mark, and then Mark would say, you know, whatever, and I could see where that could really get confusing when you're constantly, you know.
Yeah, it was a lot. What are they saying?
They would totally recommend it, especially if they're into historical fiction. I think they were saying, who said that one? CJ said that. Recommend it to someone who enjoys historical fiction. And yeah, everyone thought they would totally recommend it.
Yeah, good,
Mhm.
good. And you guys
Yep.
obviously.
Yep.
All right. Okay, good. Let's see. The other. Okay, so let's talk about.
Oh, baby yelling.
So July. So this was our book. The other ones that were in our collection for July to read were Ask for Andrea. How many of you guys read that one? That was the second. So this one got the most votes. Ask for Andrea got the second most votes. I want to know how many people read that. Did you read it? Did you read it? Did you?
Who was it
And then the
about?
third, it is a weird book.
Oh.
So I actually would recommend it, but I would, I don't know if I would recommend it. I would recommend it with caution because it's a weird book. What it is about is, so Ask for Andrea is something that you see in bars. I don't know that any of us frequent enough bars.
They
to
have
know
books
this.
in bars?
No,
I don't know about this. I frequent bars.
What they have is apparently in, if you go into a stall in the bathroom, there's a sign that says if you're on a scary date or somebody's out there bothering you and you need some help, go to the bar and ask for Andrea.
Oh,
And that's some sort of a universal code.
Oh.
The bartender's going to go, I got you. Who is it? You know, or whatever.
Mhm.
And they take care of you and make sure that you get home safe and this guy is distracted while or whatever, or they call the cops or whatever. So that's kind of what it's about. What it's about is a serial killer. And
Oh.
he is abducting and murdering these women. And so, which is not such an unusual book, but the whole book is told from the point of view of the ghosts of these women that he's murdered. I know it's a little weird because at first it's like, what is happening here? But then you kind of, it's super interesting. It's just a weird
Well, and it's a
point of view of what happens when you die. And it was just according to this person, but it was just an interesting point of view and how they move around and how they communicate with each other. And the parts that were really funny is that they're deciding to haunt him. And no matter what screaming they do, he cannot hear them. Nobody can. The cat can. The cat is over it. But the man can't. And then, but what they can do is if they're really upset, they can like flicker the lights. Or they can blurp out his computer screen. So parts of it, you know, you laugh out loud for parts of it, and then others, it's, you know, I mean, it's just
it's definitely a different point of view.
yeah. So
from
for
what we
me,
usually
I
read.
would recommend it only because I can honestly say it was the strangest, kind of almost like that September House thing. It's like, what did I just read? But I was entertained the entire time. So
A couple people have read it and really did enjoy it. Like
Okay.
super liked it.
Good.
So,
good.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was.
and I think if you're someone who likes to read mysteries and, you know, murder detective kind of things, I think it would be something entirely different instead of chasing
Yeah.
the killer or knowing who it is and just living through his life, the whole other
Just
end.
Stretching your palate a little.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, okay, so tell me about these. This is a
The
discussion for. Yeah, so were the ghosts a true representation of the person that they were?
Yes, it was kind of a funny thing, and you have to read it because it really.
I
is
might have to.
interesting. You should read it because for all of them, it took them more than a minute to realize they were dead. They couldn't. It's like, oh, wait a minute, and then as soon as they saw their body, they realized they were stuck there with their body. They had to make the conscious.
So you have
decision.
to believe in ghosts, though, to actually.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, it's just a story.
Yeah, it's just a story.
And so, so it's just a fun thing. And then they talk about, you know, what happens afterwards and what they're wearing and that they can change their clothes. They just have to think about it. And, you know, and then they can see other ghosts, but they can see everybody. And it takes them a minute
back to Harry
realize.
Potter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I think it's good. I just think it's one of those things that you almost have to know what it's about going into because you can go, no, it doesn't sound like something I would read or,
Well,
you know, whatever. But anyway, and then the other one was Pure Color. I only have that one in book form. So I don't know when I'm going to read that one. And then Collected Regrets of Clover, same thing. I only have that. Did anybody read either
Kathy-
Pure Color or Collected Regrets of Clover?
Kathy is reading the Collective Regrets of Clover right now. Hope that's not it, but
Okay,
yes.
this is not it, but is Kathy is and Kathy is it good so far?
CJ said she really liked the Collected Regrets of Clover.
Okay.
CJ has finished it. Really liked it.
Okay. I take the physical books I take with me on vacation. So
Me too.
yeah, for some reason that's I don't do Audible then. All right. And then coming up then for August, so the one that we chose was The Life We Bury. That was winner by a landslide.
By a landslide.
By a landslide.
Mhm.
It was a very, very good book. There are some things in there that you're not going to like.
Sure.
but it's really not about. I mean, there is some scenes of some things that happen in the Vietnam War, but I'm just going to say, if you've ever watched a Vietnam movie or you've ever read a Vietnam book, it's the exact same story, horrifying story you've heard a million times. So it's not great at all. You can kind of go past that a little bit, but that's not what the entire book is about. It's about, this other, it's about redemption. I liked it.
Brittany's listening. Brittany is listening to it right now, and she's really enjoying it.
I liked it. I liked it. I think I already said The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I have that on here at the moment. And then she was, we already talked about these. Tomorrow. Oh, if anybody, has anybody read it? Tomorrow and tomorrow. You know what? It was listed as it has really good reviews. Which is after I read a book, I'll go
to good reviews,
and see,
because I find some of the reviews I get,
I don't ever want to know before I read it.
And I think CJ was saying when we were talking about the good books ruin it for bad ones, and CJ says she agreed with that because she doesn't always agree with the critics say either. The critics might say it's awful.
Yeah, I
really
never
liked
read
it.
a critic
Or vice versa.
thing.
Yeah.
I agree.
Let me decide for myself.
I totally agree.
Janet says she's reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and she says it's really good.
Is it? Good. Okay,
She's
good.
doing it. So far, I don't have anybody who has read Tomorrow. None yet.
It
Mom gives it a negative rating.
There's not very many books that
Did you not finish it?
I didn't finish it.
Oh.
I had no
There you
interest in finishing it. After the one good guy, there was only, and he dies. I thought, all right, I'm out.
Nancy Toussaint said just barely made it through the Tomorrow book. Her Bridge Club friend really enjoyed it and gave it to her.
Wow. I think though that there has to be some sort of, there has to be funny, interesting, likable. I mean, I want to root for someone.
Yeah.
I want to, if I have nothing in common with these vile people, I don't care what they do. I don't want to hang around people like that. No. So I don't want to know what they're doing to each other in their life. And
I would like to recommend a book called, I can't think, maybe I should look it up real fast. Like my other book club, we read The Misremembered Man.
Misremembered.
No,
Misremembered.
I didn't even know that was
Misremembered.
Yes.
I'll look it up for you.
Okay. And talk about a book that made you cry, made you laugh, made your heart feel good.
Oh.
But it was, I would not recommend it for book club because it may really evoke some, there's some things there's some things in it that might really evoke some strong emotion.
The Misremembered Man by Christina McKenna.
Yeah. But if you would like to read a book that you're going to run through a range of emotions, it's good.
All right.
I'll put it in the chat for you guys.
In the chat. And remember also, we have quite a few recommendations, but keep emailing those recommendations as we go forward, because we select 4 per month and then we all vote on them, and winner picks it. But I agree. I think a lot of it is because so many of us like historical fiction.
Yeah.
I think it by far is the most common denominator with all of us, and so it makes sense. A good mystery.
A good mystery or a good whodunit.
Do you read any of the Maisie Dobbs? Maisie Dobbs is a good series. I think I've read through 6 of them, but I just saw that they just published the final one, and it's 8. And she is this 1940s London private eye.
Yeah.
And each book is really kind of a standalone where she a lot of them are war though. People who came back from war and people who were lost at war. So I mean, it was what was going on in the 1940s. But anyway, it's kind of it's an older Nancy Drew
Yeah, yeah, basically, yeah.
Kind of good.
Mhm.
Kind of good. And they're short little books. But
All right.
okay. Anything else? Anything else anybody else wants to talk about, or any other good books?
Janet said Addie LaRue was difficult to get started, but then at some point it got really good
Oh,
and needed to finish it. But it's a long, it's one of those 17-hour listens.
oh,
Wow.
It's a long one.
and that happens.
There's a time and a place
A
for those
lot.
long ones.
Yeah, you can turn up the speed a little.
I don't mind the long ones.
Yeah.
I don't mind it at all.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't know about everybody else's Libby, but I looked this up last night after I saw you got 25 weeks for
Wow.
my Libby to get this.
That's
book.
what took me so long because I had this. I bought the hard copy back in either May or June, whenever it was on our list to read, and I could not physically. It's just hard for me. And then I went ahead and put it on my my Libby, and it all of a sudden popped up, and I thought, oh no, it didn't pop up, and I kept waiting and waiting, and then for some reason it popped up in as a suggestion in Audible. And so I used one of our credits
Oh, sure.
for it. And I thought,
Oh.
oh, I'll put that one in there because that's something unusual.
Yeah.
And I needed something different. And so
Yeah.
There we
anyway,
go.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that was why. Anyway, if it
Might have to
eventually
buy it.
pops up in my Libby, I'll listen to it again.
There you go.
All right. All right. Anybody have anything else?
That's good.
All right. All right. Well,
All right. They all really enjoy book club chatting. So
good. Good. I think it's fun.
fun.
I think, yeah, we don't always agree with all of the books, but we don't have to. It's all right.
yeah.
Same thing going out to dinner.
Mhm.
Like, ew, not ordering that again.
there you go.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
All right.
The birthday boy is.
Our birthday boy
I know,
is
he's
wanting
pining
to
for lunch and
celebrate.
presents.
Yeah,
He's
yes.
ready for
he's-
singing.
What's
wrong?
Oh.
All right.
All right.
Okay. We're
I know.
We're
I will
gonna-
change her diaper.
all right. We're gonna.
I'm gonna go take care of Miss Baby.
Sorry.
See you next
There's a smell.
You be
Bye, you
careful
guys.
with that.
Bye.
I didn't cook myself.
Well, are you sure you're not? Boy, did you get some new shoes? Are those your